Alright, shut up, you guys. I want to talk about Pulp Fiction. That's too many buttons. That's too sexy for YouTube. So I just rewatched Quentin Tarantino's magnum opus, Pulp Fiction, and unfortunately, it's still an excellent film. It would make my life easier if it wasn't. I mean, it's rife with casual racism. The female characters are mostly helpless accessories to men, and there is just so much foot stuff. I know in my last video I joked that a character was probably into foot stuff, but this time for real, you guys. Also, my roommate's name is Brett, and if you're close to someone named Brett, you start to realize that nothing good ever happens if you're named Brett in a movie. You're either a terrible person or terrible things happen to you. In this case, it's both. And that's not really a fault of the film, the way racism is. But just once, I'd like to see a movie where you find out, actually, Brett's fine. He opened a bakery and adopted 3 cats. But despite its diciness, it is a very good movie. It injects its dark setting with a healthy dose of irrelevance while maintaining a sense of suspense. It's goofy as hell while not dumbing itself down for its audience. And a large portion of it is just 2 coworkers being kind of bad at their job while shooting the breeze about trivial nonsense, which is one of my favorite genres of movies, right after child finds magical beast in the wild and they become best friends. And did you know that underneath all that, its thesis is actually one of straightforward morality, the likes of which I have never seen outside a kid's film? This might surprise you. After all, Tarantino's movies are known to be the kind of ultra-violent that can't be overstated. In a normal film, if you had a mob boss and a professional boxer who would just killed a man, you might assume they were the most dangerous people in the vicinity. But in Tarantino's world, these 2 might just be trying to mind their own business and fight each other to the death, and end up in the grasp of a group of sadistic hillbillies that would make characters from a Rob Zombie movie say, "Whoa man, you ever heard of subtlety?" If you actually examine each subplot, you'll realize the recurring theme, and it's one straight out of Sunday school. Everyone is worthy of redemption, you just have to choose it. In each arc of the film, we have a main character who is given a very clear choice between continuing to be a bad guy that does bad things or redeeming themselves, and then receiving a reward or punishment for their choice almost immediately. Expand upon this, we're going to look at the arcs of 3 characters, Jules, Vince, and Butch. Jules, played by Samuel L. Jackson, is kind of a ringer here for me because he basically spells out this theme of redemption for himself, his colleague, and the audience. He starts the movie, as his wallet specifies, as a bad motherfucker, shooting down a room of people without a thought while shouting Bible verses just for the drama. But when he and Vince survive what should have been a guaranteed game over, he doesn't just brush it off or chalk it up to luck. He sees it not only as a wake-up call, but a miracle, and vows to give up his life of murder, intimidation, and fetching MacGuffins for his boss. Of course, we've all made promises to ourselves that we don't keep. Sometimes it's hitting the gym come January 1st. Sometimes it's re-downloading Duolingo. And sometimes it's promising not to murder people even when they really deserve it. So the universe doesn't take Jules at his word. It tests him. And that test comes in the form of Pumpkin and Honeybun, a bunch of robbers who want to take his boss's special briefcase and his cool custom wallet and ruin the nice breakfast he earned for himself by cleaning brains off of his car seat. This is the moment that Jules earns his redemption, more so than his spoken vows. Because it would be so easy to justify blowing these 2 criminals away, because they are criminals who are threatening to kill everyone in this diner over a few lousy wallets and a cash register. But if he killed them, how easy would it be for him to justify the next murderer or thief or embezzler that his boss sent him after? Murder is all or nothing. It's Batman rules, baby. even more than that, he recognizes that he has to overcome not just the external forces that cause him to be a bad person, but the internal factors as well, namely his desire to be a badass. Pride is also a repeating theme in this film. Although it's more spelled out in the arc with Butch and Marcellus, it's very prevalent with Jules as well. So not only does Jules resist the urge to just waste Pumpkin and Honey Bun, he gives away his wallet that literally identifies him as a bad motherfucker, and in doing so solidifies his commitment to being a better person. He does, however, strike enough fear into their hearts that maybe they get to have their own redemption moment. And what's more badass than helping people make good choices by holding them up at their own robbery? In all this, Jules gains more than a sense of self-respect or brownie points with a higher power, because if he hadn't let go of his own ego and his own wallet, there's a good chance he would have been mowed down by Honey Bun. And if he had escaped that scenario, who knows whether he'd be staring down another barrel the next day, much like our next arc's protagonist, Vincent. Vince lives through the same miraculous circumstances as Jules, and despite his friend's argument, does not see this as a sign to turn his life around. But, much like Jules has the opportunity to abandon his commitment, Vince has the chance to think twice. I'm talking, of course, about his date with Mia, his boss Marcellus's wife, and the way it ends. I know a woman ODing and nearly dying is a funny way for fate to try and turn someone else's life around, but again, women in this movie, mostly plot devices. Vince is asked to take out Mia for dinner while Marcellus is away on business. Some viewers have suggested that this is more than just Marcellus making sure his wife is happy and occupied in his absence. It is actually a test of Vince's loyalty. And I'm inclined to think that makes sense. We know there are rumors that Marcellus had someone thrown from a window for giving Mia a foot rub. What I say about the foot stuff. This could have been a previously failed test of loyalty, or the reason Marcellus decided these tests were necessary. We also know that Vince just returned from 2 years in Europe, so that extended leave of absence might be another reason why Marcellus doesn't intrinsically trust him. Finally, making your employee take out your wife, who he doesn't know just because you're going to be away for a couple nights, is a weird move. Wouldn't she be kind of used to her mobster husband having to disappear for a while every now and then? Doesn't she have friends or family who could keep her occupied? Either it's a test, or everyone she knows is a bad dancer and she knew she needed John Travolta if she wanted to win that twist competition. In the moment in time in which Mia has her little accident, it's unclear whether Vince is about to pass Marcellus's test or not. He's trying to talk himself into leaving, but in my experience, if you've gotten to the point where you're arguing with yourself in a bathroom mirror, it's not a good sign. Plus, so far, every time Mia has tried to convince Vince to do something that he doesn't want to do, she has succeeded. So how far would he have made it out of that bathroom before she convinced him to sit down, have another drink, stay a while, take off your socks? If that had happened, how long until he found himself having a little tumble out of a window? Evening taking the turn it did might have seemed like the very worst thing that could have happened in the moment, but it may have stopped Vince from making an even worse mistake, a second miracle. And having narrowly escaped death so recently once before, one would think that nearly killing his boss's wife might make Vince think twice about his friend Jules' little theory. Or maybe he wouldn't rethink a damn thing and die shortly after in a poorly timed potty break. You hate to see someone go out like that, especially before he and his brother get their spin-off, but whether you believe in miracles or just lucky breaks, how many chances can one man expect to get to pull himself out of danger? To finish us off, let's talk about the man on the other side of that bathroom blowout, Butch. Butch earns the ire of Marcellus after he decimates his opponent in the fight he was supposed to throw, thus earning himself a killing in more ways than one. After that, though, fate is not on his side. His girlfriend forgets to pack the watch that his family has seen through 2 wars. He retrieves it and escapes his house only to run into Marcellus on the street. And when he finally manages to punch him out after they've grappled each other into a pawn shop, they both end up kidnapped. That is the opposite of a miracle. That is a no good, terrible, awful day. You know how those two things are opposites? Against all odds, Butch manages to escape the pawn shop hillbillies and is basically home free to pick up his girlfriend and ride into the sunset. But as he exits, he realizes he has a choice. He can leave Marcellus to these monsters, or he can take them out and save the man he was in a death match with not 1 hour ago. He could very well be sealing his own fate if he does save him and Marcellus doesn't forgive him for his deeds. There's really no great argument for doing the right thing in this scenario, except that what is happening to Marcellus is so messed up, and Butch is partially to blame. That, and there's a very cool katana he can use. His choice isn't quite as mystical as Jules and Vincent somehow dodging a whole round of bullets while standing perfectly still, but it's still a clear-cut moment where he can do what is easy, or he can take a stand against evil. His choice pays off in spades. After he saves Marcellus, the mob boss essentially issues a ceasefire on the manhunt against Butch, as long as Butch promises to disappear and never stick his nose in Marcellus's business again. And similarly to how Jules' life may have been saved by his choice, and Vincent condemned by his, Butch's choice may have had more positive ramifications than he could ever know. Would he have been able to make his escape if Marcellus hadn't called off the hunt? Would his men have ever left him alone, or would they have extended the search to anywhere he might think to hide once they found out that on top of betraying Marcellus, he was responsible for his disappearance and Vince's death? Now, the idea of redemption as presented in this reading of the film might seem simplistic. None of these guys seem to need to make amends for any of the sizable atrocities they've committed. Hell, Jules even helps cover up a little manslaughter right after his epiphany. But this isn't so far off from the idea of salvation in many major religions, where you simply must confess your sins or recommit yourself to God in order to be forgiven. And it's refreshing that an action crime film like Pulp Fiction doesn't seem to support the idea that goodness is synonymous with naivete and being kind is for suckers, and instead suggests that good deeds or just any effort to better yourself will be rewarded no matter who you are. Unless your name is Brett, in which case, good luck. Let me know what you think about Pulp Fiction being a moral parable in the comments. Would you like to see me do more videos on movies like this, or should I tackle the child and magical beasts are best friends genre? Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and as always, have a delicious day.